Call to order this regular meeting of the Rockridge School Board. I will ask that anyone that has a phone or a communication device to turn them off or place them on silent. There's a binder with public materials at the table at the front of the room. Meeting agendas are also available online at rrps.org, district information, the school board board book tab. At this time, I will invite everyone to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now conduct a roll call. Director Yuhan?
Here.
Director Tamaro?
Here.
Director Schoberg?
Here.
Director Lotiger?
Here.
Director Anderson?
Here.
Director Sorkin?
Here.
Director Addy?
Here.
Director Reardon?
Here.
And Director Sundquist is here. We have 9 of our members present. Agenda item 2 is approval of the agenda. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
I'd like, Madam Chair, I'd like to pull 5.1 under construction and under administration item 8.6.
Is there support? Support. Motion by Director Reardon and support by Director Lotiger. Any discussion?
I'm just curious as to why they were on the agenda and now they're being pulled.
Jim? We need more time. Jim? We need more time on those.
I was
Need more
asking.
time.
More time?
Yes.
How would you know that? I don't know that.
I just said it to him as the meeting was starting.
So you asked him to pull those 2 from the agenda?
Yes. And the other discussion?
That was, I'm sorry, 5.1 and
8.6.
6.
8.6.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. At this point, I would recognize visitors and visitor input. I do have information of a few people that would like to speak. And first one I have on is Lori Hippeljam regarding staffing concerns. I think, if you want to.
Just come on.
Right here? It's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Move over a little bit this way, you'll be on the thing.
Yeah.
Right here.
Right here? We used to actually have yellow tape on the floor.
Yeah, where's my mark, right? So I know there's the 3 minute, I'm going to do the best I can to get through this quickly, but you know, these people have lots to say, so I'll do my best. Thank you, first of all, for giving us the opportunity to address directly the board tonight with our staffing and budget concerns. As you know, these issues were previously addressed with Dr. Schmidt on May 26th, followed by a letter to the board on May 28th. We would like to outline for you tonight not only our concerns regarding staffing, but also our thoughts and our ideas for the board to consider about how the budget could possibly be creatively reconfigured to not only best serve the needs of our students, but also as a way of creating a pathway to retaining the 2 highly qualified experienced teachers which are being considered for termination. I'd like to ask you that as you listen tonight, that you would frame what you are hearing as a teacher would, because we all talk about doing what's best for kids. But teachers live that every day. We feel privileged to have these kids for 9 months of the year, and they truly become our kids. We get to know them, and there's nothing that we wouldn't do for their benefit. Our staff is like our family, and we also will do everything we can to support and protect them. First, I'd like to address the 2 staff members at the Franklin being recommended for termination. For the consolidation, our staff, which included these 2 staff members, was told, along with the public, that no teachers would be losing their jobs. Again, in May, the Franklin staff was told that there were not going to be any cuts in our building, but that perhaps one person would have to move to another campus based on class sizes. Only a short time later, the administration chose to include these two teachers from the Franklin that have been working in our district for 3 and 5 years as part of their staff reduction process, a process that has been decidedly anything but transparent. We have yet to be fully informed about this decision-making process and find it concerning how a decision was reached to cut 2 highly qualified, experienced teachers or cutting the multiple first year or any of the other less experienced teachers at the Virginia campus. If we are truly one district, the entire pool of non-tenured teachers should have been evaluated objectively. We feel that in an attempt to be fair, the administration decided to make cuts on both sides of the district when in fact, the fair thing would have been to make cuts based solely on quality and experience, regardless of which campus at which the teachers were currently working. We'd like to ask the board to help us address the staff reduction process and its lack of transparency, as well as to consider the precedent we will be setting if we cut 2 exceptional teachers who are at or near tenure that have both received only positive evaluations from administration. Addressing secondly, the budget and how it relates to our staffing concerns. We absolutely understand the difficulty in balancing the budget for the upcoming school year. Our staff has been tireless in trying to present the administration and now the board ways in which we could save money and retain these 2 fine teachers. We also understand the value of being fiscally frugal at this time, but more importantly, as educators, we understand the value of spending money to address the increased needs of our students coming out of this pandemic. We have COVID money for a reason. Our representatives saw the challenges our students have had and recognize the challenges still yet to come as we try to regain what has been lost. We should be respectful stewards of those funds and make sure they are being spent in a way that will provide the students with the support that they need. We would like to share with you the following ideas in ways in which we could be more thoughtful in the manner in which we choose to spend our budgeting money. A new bus, although desirable for the district, does nothing to help our students regain lost learning opportunities. A new reading curriculum for 3-6, which is a nearly exact replacement of the curriculum that we currently have, seems like a reasonable place to cut costs. There are also a number of technology programs which are not going to be renewed, as well as some new ones set to be purchased that only a fraction of the staff is going to use. The exact cost savings is not known to us, but we do know that it could be substantial. In the end, even with all the budget considerations, perhaps the most important thing to remember when considering the way in which to spend the district's money, whether it be what we typically have or whether it be COVID money, is that we must honestly recognize the impact this pandemic has had on our students and what that should mean for us regarding both class sizes and increased student needs. We are generally happy to see K-4 has maintained small class sizes, with the exception of a few grade levels being far too high. We know Dr. Schmidt can find research to say class size doesn't matter, and teachers can find research to say class size does matter. But as Dr. Schmidt also said at our last day picnic, nobody has ever been through what we have been through. Nobody has ever done what we have done. And so we know in our heart of hearts that this is not the year to allow those class sizes to go unaddressed. Our kids deserve better. Our kids deserve to get the support they need. If 1 in 10 of our students qualified for summer school, they will most certainly return next year with still a great deal of catching up to do. What a disservice to our students if we ignore the impact that distance learning has had on them. Assigning instead of terminating the 2 staff members we currently have to either reduce class sizes or to become the 2 full-time interventionists set for hire would go a long way in bridging that gap for our kids. Of the options Dr. Schmidt is going to present to you tonight, doesn't it seem reasonable to place the 2 considered for termination into those positions? Thank you again for taking the time to hear from us, and please consider all that we have said. We need to be authentically doing what is best for kids. And we should also be mindful of doing what is ethically right for the 2 dedicated teachers we already have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, there's a Mr. Tom Walton. I'm not sure what he would like to speak on, but
Yeah, I'd like a couple items here. First is that opinion that gets talked about ad nauseum, the one about, what is it? I don't even know anymore. Does it have a reference number or something? Opinion number 412 or something?
I'm not sure what you're referencing. Is it something on the agenda tonight?
No, it's been brought up before.
Okay, well, we only address items that are on the agenda. So what else did you want to address?
Let's try this. The second reading of the revisions to the policy committee, right? I object to that being passed. I think it should go back to the policy committee. And on that meeting for the policy committee, visitor input should be added. It's about visitor input, isn't it? Why shouldn't visitors have input at that meeting?
Anything else, Mr. Walton?
Yeah, you can vote on pass or releasing that opinion. You have the authority to do that, don't you?
We're not addressing, Mr. Walton, we're not addressing the opinion because it's not on the agenda tonight, but thank you for your time.
Bring it to a vote.
I also know that Ms. Catherine Disterhoff wanted to speak about policy and manual arts. The manual arts has been taken off of the agenda, so if you'd like to speak to the board on the policy. Okay.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Yes, the policy is the same policy that Mr. Walton was referring to regarding visitor input. Just as reference for the time frame, the last speaker had 10 minutes, and granted, that's a very viable point. But I think that there should be more flexibility with the visitor input and not have it be so stringent with the time frame, because sometimes some cases, such as the important topic of teachers, needs more time than others, and putting that power solely in the chair and the superintendent, I don't agree with, as well as there should be a place or a committee that people in the general public, where they don't have items that fall on the agenda, can take those to. Because right now there's different issues that get brought up, and either they're disregarded by the chair or by the superintendent, and then they don't get addressed. And then those issues either remain, or there's no place to really go. So if there could be a committee that could be dedicated for that, that would be great. And then the other thing is I would agree with what the speaker had said about teachers retaining ones that have more years of service, because all that experience can truly help students. And I would say with having intervention in that would be a good position for experienced teachers, and might be a good fit, because I can tell you from my firsthand, from my daughter doing distance learning, that, and sorry, you can hear them in the background, doing distance learning, that they do need that extra support, especially the loss of socialization and just all of the different losses of different skills. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Was there anyone else present tonight that wanted to? All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented or with amendments. Motion by Director Anderson.
Support.
And support by Director Yuhan. Any additional discussion?
I'd like a little more information on 4.3. Either discuss it now or pull it and discuss it right after the consent agenda. Should I ask my question now or after you vote on the consent agenda?
I guess you can ask it now. Noel, are you?
No, I can, I was not, excuse me, members of the board, I was not on the interview committee. However, I know that interview committee interviewed a number of science teachers. There was a candidate who turned the position down. And so of all the candidates that were interviewed, the committee is recommending Christopher Olson for the position. And so that's why we're bringing that name forward to you tonight. And you can see that we received 7 applicants. We did not receive a large number of applicants. And of those 7, 4 were interviewed by the interview team.
Who was the interview team? Any staff or was it administration?
Usually it's the Todd Grippentrog, is the administrator in charge of this one. And then they're almost always teachers. I don't have the list in front of me on which teachers were on that interview team.
There were some teachers?
Yes,
There were teachers.
there always are.
And my main question was, it says pending licensure. What's that all about?
It's not unusual for us to hire or recommend for hire a young teacher. They might have finished all of their, like they may have graduated in May or maybe early June, and they've submitted all their materials to the state of Minnesota. The office that processes the licenses, they always get behind this time of year. So it's not unusual for the beginning teacher to actually receive their teaching license in August, sometimes late July. So that's why we put those words in there that we believe this person is going to get the licensure, but we needed to go through MDE and to get processed. So that's what that means.
Is he a tier 2 teacher?
Excuse me?
Would he be on tier 2?
No, this would be a teacher at the highest level, because this teacher, we believe, is going to show the full licensure.
Okay, so
This would
the
be tier 4.
tier 4, okay. Then there's another person by this name. When I checked the licensure, that it was active, but he has this person had an out-of-state, Christopher with a K, Olson, out-of-state license, and then I was wondering why it was pending licensure.
Well,
I'm just saying the paperwork hasn't been,
Yep. And same thing would apply if someone's from out of state,
Right.
same thing. Moving to Minnesota, they need to go through their licensure process. And so the same thing would apply, yeah.
that's not this person, this is a different Christopher
As
Olson.
I'm standing here right now, I don't know. You could be right that this is the person from out of state.
Okay,
It could be. It's either one where we believe this person has the license requirements. We'll get it. We just don't have the hard copy in our hands.
okay, so it's not that the district has to get special permission for a tier 2 teacher working on his or her licensure? Okay.
No, that's not what this is.
And then, so pending licensure, we're thinking of waiting, but there were fully licensed other candidates that the committee did not feel they would want to recommend?
Yes, and that's actually normal in the interviewing process, that different people might be at different levels of the licensure process. And so we need to hire someone who's licensed, otherwise we look at the different tiers. And so, yes, that's very possible that that could happen. And I would tell any interview committee, we hire the best one available, we'll work with them to get the license.
Okay, that was my question, basically, pending licensure.
We've got a motion by Director Anderson, support by Director Yuhan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And carries unanimously. Moving on to construction, we removed agenda item 5.1. We'll be moving on to agenda item 5.2, athletic field lighting decisions with Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Knoll.
I'd like to thank the board and the chair for us to be able to be with you again here tonight. This presentation is about the lighting on the athletic fields. Originally, we've got a little history just to kind of refresh everyone's memory on how this processed, but there's been some concerns that without having lighting on those fields, there might be a desire to put that back into the project. So we'll kind of walk you through that historical data and we'll go over some information and ask for a decision.
Awesome. Sounds great. It's great to see the board too without masks. I forgot what a good looking group this is here. So like Patrick mentioned, we are here to talk about those athletic lights. The fields in question, which I'll show very explicitly on a diagram here, very specifically are the varsity baseball and varsity softball fields. All right. So these three questions will be relisted right at the end of the presentation, but this more or less boils down the decision that would be required by the board to occur here. So option number one, installation of a full athletic field lighting system for these two varsity fields. That would include all of the poles, all of the foundations, all of the electrical work, and all of the controls, the whole system complete. That would be for the cost of approximately $575,000 to the high school project. Item number 2, or option number 2, installation at this time of just the foundational system as well as the electrical rough-ins for these athletic field lights at the 2 varsity fields. That would consist majority of the concrete as well as the electrical rough-in. So if you were to look at it in the ground, you would basically just be seeing the connection points. This would not include the 90-foot lighting pole masts, the light themselves, or the controls. To do that work right now, it costs approximately $200,000 to the Rockridge High School project. And option number 3 would be to continue, perform no work pertaining to this system. The 2 varsity athletic fields in question here would remain unlit, and this would be of no cost to the project. That's the kind of the bottom line breakdown. Here are some additional details. This is the map of your baseball and softball field area. This is White Cedar Drive, Borgen Road. Highway 53 is running north-south just to the west, and your high school is going to be just off to the corner here. Again, these fields have numbering on them. We are very specifically talking about the fields that has a number 2 as well as a number 3. And we've identified them here as the varsity softball field as well as the varsity baseball field. The 2 junior varsity fields are not under discussion tonight and do not have athletic field lighting to them right now. The red dots indicate just diagrammatically where the different poles that you would see be located on. So you would have 5 to 6 poles at each one of those fields. So we're talking about 10 to 12 different poles here in this system. All right, and then I just want to make a notation just so that we discuss all the athletic fields. The football track stadium is not a field that's under discussion for tonight. Your football and track stadium is already getting athletic field lighting. That is not included in the numbers that I shared. This is already in the project. This is already financed. This is going to be installed. So I just wanted to be clear. We're just talking about those 2 fields. All right. So some items about why this is an important decision to make right now. And we'll talk a little bit about the history again, like Patrick mentioned in just a second. But again, in order to install these lights that have 90-foot masts to them, you will need some type of heavy crane access to the space. There's a couple of unique features around your baseball and softball fields that preclude and limit future access to a heavy crane. So although it'll make a fantastic and beautiful setting to be able to play ball in, you have some unique limiting features that aren't in play at some other locations. So a couple of those items, the proximity to the wetlands and the delineated wetland areas, those I've highlighted in gray onto this diagram here. You can see the proximity of the edge of the field in relationship to where that hatched gray area is. So it's really in there quite tight. The second item is the grades or grading around those fields. It's difficult to see in this 2D plan view representation, but there is up to a 15-foot difference in elevation between some points here shaded in gray and the edge of the field there. So there are some severe drop-offs. There are some retaining wall type elements that are pure vertical element type drop-offs that have fences around them. But the whole idea is that the logistics and the ability to maneuver a crane around the outside perimeter of the field is something that is not going to be a future possibility, which means, and brings me to point number 3 there, if you were to install at a later date and forego the installation today, you would need to find some way to protect the synthetic turf surface in order to track a crane across your fields and be able to access those pole locations. So that's why it's a kind of a right now or very difficult to do later type deal. One other item that I just wanted to mention as well, because the foundation systems for these lighting pole masts are approximately 12 foot by 12 foot and 2 foot thick, because of how close the edge of the turf surface is to those actual systems, In order to do the excavation, you may have to remove some of the perimeter fencing in your outfield, as well as some potential disturbances to the actual turf surface itself, making installation of just foundations even later on. If the turf were to be installed and you were to forego the lights or forego even the foundations, that would make it difficult to do later. There would be some repair costs and some likely additional costs associated with waiting and doing this at a later date. I also want to qualify the term never. Anything is possible, of course, in construction. But in order to make this the most cost-effective timing, the next available window where you would not incur large amounts of additional costs would be at the natural turf replacement life, which is about 10 to 15 years for the particular turf assemblies that you have for these fields, depending on how heavily they're used. That would be in the years somewhere in 2032 to 2037 when you would be tearing off the surface of the turf, naturally replacing it. That would be a good opportunity in the future, if you choose not to install these right now, to be able to make that upgrade. So a little bit on the background pertaining to these two particular fields and their sets of lights. So back in August of 2020, about 11 months ago, the bid package for this project, bid package number 2, was issued out onto the street, and these lights were included within the design for those fields at that time. About a month and a half later, after all of the bids were received, that's when the $5.65 million budget realignment was identified, and some work had to be done in order to realign the budget at that time. Again, at that time when the bids were received and the bids were opened, the price of these lights were included within your contractor's bids, and those were included and contributed towards the $5.5 million plus budget realignment that was required. And at the time when these electrical bids, which is the majority of this scope of work, were approved by the board in order to maintain the project schedule, there was not a final budget alignment strategy in place at the time, but if you remember back, we said we would come to you about 2 weeks later and we would do that presentation. So then back in 26 October, that's when all of the rest of the bid package number 2 scopes were presented right alongside a budget realignment plan. One component of this budget realignment plan that was listed out on some of the slides was the elimination of this particular athletic field lighting that we are showing right here on the diagram tonight at these 2 varsity fields. And so as we stand today, from some discussion that we've been having with the rest of the project teams, things like that, sounds like there may actually be a desire now to install these lights. The athletic fields are under heavy construction right now. They are ready to perform this work, and this would be a decision that would need to be made essentially tonight in order to maintain your project's schedule as it pertains to those athletic fields. So here's a really simple restatement of those 3 options again to essentially add these back into the project for the entire system. This is what would have been included on bid day, but again, due to the budget realignment, was not able to occur. The in-between option, kind of the hybrid solution, would be to incur $200,000 worth of cost today, at least get the foundation system installed like I showed in the picture, the diagram there. You won't be disturbing your future turf surface, but you would have to find a time, maybe during a winter, where you would still have to set the masts and you would still be kind of tracking across your finished turf surface. And the idea would be that there would be some sort of fundraising or booster type effort to raise the $375,000 delta there to be able to afford the rest of the mass. And option number 3 would again be to continue as the amended, approved, revised plan was, proceed without lighting on those fields and have the $0 situation there. So Patrick, do you have any other details that you might want to mention here that are pertinent?
Just one thing that you had mentioned is you'd have to protect the turf to put the poles up. And you did mention like laying blankets out there or across the turf, or to do it in the frozen months when the ground is completely frozen. You could cross that with a crane to set those poles. So if we got the foundations done now and they wanted to set the poles in the winter, that could be done. Okay.
All right.
So Pat, what happens if you say you need to do low maintenance on lights, you lost a few lights just because these didn't last? How would the school district be able to change those lights? Or, I mean, what sort of equipment and like that would be able to drive on it in the winter? Would be a piece of equipment that would just disrupt the surface need be in 5 years, or a few bulbs need to be changed?
I'd have to look at this type of lighting, but in a lot of cases, you can access those through a ladder system with the fall protection, and you can do it that way. But I'd want to look at this one and see if that is indeed the case. Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. Another possible alternative is that if the lights and the masts are already installed, you likely wouldn't need a heavy crane in order to do replacement, maybe some type of lighter boom truck that has a basket on it and some sort of heavy matting that goes across the surface of the turf that would disperse the weight of that vehicle would be kind of another option there to be able to do that.
But you are bringing up a good point, and that is the fact that we have a unique situation where we put these fields basically on the edge of a wetland and in and around rock. So it is a great thing that we did, and it is going to work very well for the actual function of the field, but it does make the maintenance of that perimeter type activity a little more difficult.
So you said the $575,000, that's what was the original cost, and adding it now, it's not any more cost at this later date? 575,000 for the whole system?
Yeah, just due to the natural course of a year of inflation, at the time, it was the credit essentially that was given for this was slightly lower than that $575,000 value.
To answer your question, it did go up some.
Yep.
That is the increase.
Because it was taken out of the 5.5. So if $500,000 or a little bit more was taken out of that budget, there's still $5 million that was it shaved? Was it paired? Are there still other outstanding things that?
Well, those reductions were made, and that was, as you had stated on the one slide there, that was approved several board meetings ago.
Okay, so we no longer have a $5 million adjustment?
No, you will have a $500,000 issue if you approve this tonight, because you'll need to get that funding from somewhere. But from what I understand, your facilities group met and thought that there was enough interest that we should bring this to you tonight.
And I guess that's what I don't understand. When we went through that slide, it was in there originally, and then at some point in time, somebody thought, or some group thought that we can do without them, but we can't do without them?
I specifically remember this discussion, and I remember Mr. Gallagher having some consternation that I think your comment was we might be going over the edge on this one. And yeah, I mean, personally, I think, we've sold these fields, we've sold this facility that, we're going to have a jewel. And by not putting lights, I mean, we just got done with section tournaments, and if you're going to bid on a section tournament, you better have lights on your field, not to mention potentially trying to get a state tournament. And I just think we'd be limiting ourselves if we don't put this in there, not just for, our use, but then also limiting potential revenue sources for leasing these fields in the summer for tournaments, whether it's district Legion tournament or VFW tournament, or, I mean, you need lights. And without lights, they just aren't going to get utilized.
Without question. We just had that run last week and we finished under the lights pretty much every night. I mean, up in Ely, in Duluth. I mean, and we were talking the latest part of the days of the longest part of the year right now. You got to have lights or you're not going to host anything. it is disappointing that we have to talk about it tonight. I think somehow I missed that in October, and maybe it was skewed that it was gonna possibly get thrown back in on an option, but without question, lights are a necessity. There's lights at the football field, there's lights in the gym, there's lights at the pool, there's gotta be lights at the baseball field. There's a lot more games in the baseball than there is in football and stuff. It's gonna get used more.
Are you making a motion, Director?
I'm making a
Yuhan?
motion.
I'll support it.
Option one.
So there's a motion by Director Yuhan and support by Director Addy.
Correct.
Any further discussion?
Just kind of related, could we get, you might have given it to us already, but if nobody else is interested, I am. What were the other alignments for that other 5 million? They must have been
It's-
deducts or something.
Extensive spreadsheet
Well, I mean,
for a lot of items, and I can go offline and hand one to you.
well,
Scoreboards that have been funded.
You love those scores.
I do.
And it happened just like we said. But
Yeah.
in the 26 October board meeting, there was a read ahead packet that was sent. And within that read ahead packet was a summary of the value management items that were provided there. And this one did appear on that list, but to provide some other context, it was grouped by division and finishes and systems. And that listing would be in that reference material.
We also did reference this one specifically because it was such a large dollar amount. And just to go back in history here a little bit, one of the two things that was brought up is how often do you have a need for lighting on a baseball field? That was discussed at the time. I hear what you're saying, but that was one of the issues. And then how much revenue would an event bring versus $500,000 worth of lights? So you got to kind of weigh that. And again, we're the constructors, so we're not advocating one way or another. This does put you in a budget situation that really needs to be worked between the administration and the advisory team board, because you don't really have this money right now. That's why it was taken out in the first place. So if you're going to put this back in and vote for that tonight, then we will have to go back and see what else needs to be cut or what other revenue sources you have to pay for it. I'll just say that up front. The problem hasn't changed. And the solution was those other items that you were talking about, as well as this one. So if you vote to do this tonight, we'll have to find $500,000 plus to pay for it.
so just two more quick things. So now that this came to light and that list that I asked you about, the other 5 million or so dollars, this came to light now. Is there anything that you can think of that might be an important one like this that might have to be brought back in? Have you gone back and thought about that and brainstormed about some others?
We thought that through extensively back when it happened, and we covered it with the advisory team. So I can't read everybody's mind, but from the conversations we had with the advisory team, I feel that what was removed were nice to haves versus got to haves.
Okay. And this might be one of the same things. And then the other thing is, see, I said I had two things. They were related. Well, I lost it.
We will
One.
We will provide that presentation that we did to you in hard copy, and we'll also give you the spreadsheet so that you can look at that as well. It's not the intent, and let me put it this way, we want to be transparent with everything we're doing. We did definitely cover this issue. It just didn't seem, in all of the issues we brought up, it might have gotten lost.
Yeah.
You know,
And the other thing, to put another $500-some thousand against maybe something that was more directly curricular, would have a curricular effect. I guess that's my question when we have to start looking at some more cuts. That might be directly instruction related versus lights in the football field.
I can't really answer that one.
That must be my cue.
That's exactly what that was.
So, members of the board, what we're thinking, the short answer on that one is no, we can, it seems counterintuitive, but we cannot use, this money came from the bond. There are certain rules that come along with how we have to spend the bond funds. This is coming from the taxpayers. So what we're thinking on this, so this is almost, you have to think of it as a separate topic from the other budget issues that you're going to talk about later on in the board meeting. This is not related to that. This is separate. So what we're thinking, Spencer and I have talked, because you're the school board, So you tell us what you want to have happen, and then we try and figure out the best way to do this. And Spencer, I don't want to, I guess maybe you're probably the best person. You do get money on facilities every year. We have buildings we're not having to upkeep because we know we're not going to be using them. So Spencer, I know you and I were talking about how would we pay for this, looking at the facilities revenue for a way to pay for it, not using or taking away from any other part of the construction project. Now, this is different than what you talked about when you first talked about this. So Spencer, how would that work?
So annually, we receive money for capital and maintenance dollars through several different avenues from state and from taconite dollars that have to be used on our facilities. So we've looked at, there's a number of things that need to be updated in the older buildings. This one of them, if we're going to move things into this building, and part of the Virginia Elementary, the piece that is going to be kept there is going to need a new roof. So we've looked at, can we save over the next 3 years as we're building and not putting other money into the buildings that are eventually going to be torn down? Can we save those funds to pay for these other things through the capital? So this could be one of those that we can save over the next several years by not updating. Obviously, we don't need a roof if we are going to be tearing that building down. So it could come from our annual capital funds to pay for this. So that's kind of the short of where money could come.
And where I was going with maybe directly curricular and or instructional, we also have soft funds through this bond reference, equipment and things like that. And I wouldn't want to see any of those get pinched, for a deficit for these lights. That's where it's coming.
This is one of those love or hate things. You either think this is a great idea or you may think this is not a good idea. It depends upon your perception of things. So what's the right thing to do for the district? You're going to tell us this really is crunch time. This is you have a situation where in most towns, you build a baseball field, you can drive all the way around the baseball field. It's not unusual to have schools put in poles 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, or as a fundraiser, or they get another source of revenue. You just don't have that luxury. There is no way you can drive around these fields to do this. So we either do this now or we wait, frankly, until the turf fields are replaced in 10 to 20 years. But there is a cost to it, $575,000. If you tell us yes, if you do the $575,000 or the $200,000, either one, we will most likely be looking at funding it through the fund that Spencer was just talking about, making Pat happy because nothing else is being reduced or impacted on the school construction funds. All right, I'm going to go to the side again. So Pat.
I got a question just to clarify. So the bond money has to be used towards things like this and not towards things like teacher salaries, et cetera.
And not shift those funds to pay for teacher salaries. Yes, that is legally, yes, you're correct, Brandy.
It's a different color of money, I guess.
And Noel, when you say legally, that's something that's pursuant to state statute, correct?
Yes.
But again, there are supplies and there are things like, say, in a science lab those are all soft cost desks and whatever. And that's what I didn't want to trade off or compromise on those more directly.
We call it the FF&E budget, furnitures, fixtures, equipment.
Yeah,
So,
FFE, yeah.
yes, you could tell us to take it out of there, but then we're buying less of what you just
I
described.
wouldn't want it taken out of there is what I'm saying. That's more directly curricular.
Right, it is.
Okay.
No, we're not suggesting.
One thing you did mention was supplies, and that does not fall under the referendum.
Yeah, FFE for fixtures, furniture, and equipment.
Any other questions while I'm up here?
Not of you, but I was going to ask Pat. That's set.
Yeah, you really, well, these two, you really want to ask
me
questions.
happy.
You are wearing red, Pat.
October was probably due to that retaining wall we have to put in a bus garage to accommodate the ERAS.
So what's your question?
How much money was spent on that retaining wall?
I would have to look at the breakout of the retaining
Pretty
wall.
close to $500,000.
But the entire bus garage was very costly because it had to be shoehorned between wetlands and the existing field. Yes.
That was around the time frame that you took the lights off.
Yes, that was about that same time frame. You're correct.
Why don't you incorporate a road right around the field like most professional fields have? Then you have it there.
Can we answer that?
No. Any other questions from the board? We've got a motion, we've got support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No,
Motion carries 8-1.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Agenda item 6.1 is us. Are you ready?
Well, it was just a certification, let's see. It was just a certification that all the school bus safety has been done for all of the schools and all of the district, which needs to be done twice a year. Needs to be done K through 10 once a year and K through 6 the second time in a year. That has all been completed.
Thank you. Any questions for Bob Voss? All right, agenda item 6.2 is the 2021-22 school district budget with Spencer Owney.
Good evening. Again, we won't be making any motions on this tonight, at least I don't believe so. This is again, information for you. It's very similar to the information we brought on March 22nd and then again on May 24th. And we've had 2 or 3 finance committee meetings where we've also discussed this information. So kind of the new information today is kind of laying out 4 different options. So you guys can kind of let me know how you want me to build the budget for presentation. Remember, the budget does need to be approved by June 30th. So we need to bring this to the next school board meeting on the 28th for approval. So these are just the different options. I did leave a larger copy on everybody's desk so you can see it instead of looking at your iPad on those. Option A is very similar to the one you saw at the May 24th meeting. It's got some updated numbers on it that I've received from administration. And you can see that that doesn't change much from the 24th except for those new better numbers. Option B is very similar to option A, except this one changes how we are going to run the title program. So that would eliminate Title I hourly paid teachers and hire 2.0 FTE teacher interventionists in math and reading. So I know somebody mentioned that earlier. So that's one of the options there. That one the hiring of the Title I interventionist doesn't really affect the general fund, as those are all contained in that Title I grant that we receive. And so all that would be kind of inside of that, inside the Title I grant. Option 3 does not make the final 2.0 teacher reductions that were shown on May 24th. It does not purchase the 3rd bus. It would include the 2 buses that we've talked about earlier, but not the 3rd. And it does not purchase the grade 3 through 6 reading curriculum. It would make the K through 2, right? K or pre-K through 2 curriculum purchase is part of this. However, just so you know, if we don't make that 3 through 6 reading curriculum, we do have to buy a 1-year subscription to the current curriculum so that we still have access to it for grades 3 through 6. So that net savings in the curriculum is about $95,000 for 21-22. And then option D, this option does not make the final 2.0 teacher reduction. However, it would keep the 3rd bus and it would keep the full curriculum purchase in it. And just as a reminder, with all of those options, we are spending almost 2 million, 1.99 million of ESSER 2 funds. We use that to plug that hole for all those options to bring that in. This does not touch the ESSER 3 funds yet. Those It would leave us with about 4.4 million in unallocated ESSER three. Those do need to be used prior to June 30th of 2024. So that's something that we can use in the next couple of years. But we do have to start gathering the application materials for that. Those applications are due by October 1st. They did open the applications last week, so we can kind of do it anytime between now and October. We're still gathering information on all things we can use ESSER three funds for. But I know we can use it for most things that are within education. And there's some other things that you can do, indoor air quality, a lot of things like that, that they want to make sure schools are safe for students to come back, but it also to go into the teaching and learning and all that. So I guess what we're looking for tonight is kind of a little bit more feedback on what you would like me to put into the final budget for final budget next week or in 2 weeks from now that we present to you.
Does option A also just include special ed funding and not the general fund?
Well, special ed funding is part of the general fund.
Well, it's a reserve fund,
Yes, it is a reason.
so it's not the unallocated, unreserved fund, so that wouldn't have an impact on the,
It would have an impact, yes. That all goes into the unallocated special ed.
okay. And then for option B, how much plus or minus would that be with the Title I and the grant money? It's either going to cost more or it's going to cost less to have interventionists versus Title I people.
If they're going to put interventionists in there, they have to make sure that they reduce by whatever that cost is going to be in that Title I budget to make sure everything's in there. So that's why we'd have to reduce that Title I grant by the hourly paid teachers or other supplies within Title I by the 123,000 if we're going to add 2 teachers in there at 123,000.
Under 23,000, okay. And then is that, maybe this is a Noel question. Title I, they're part-time, would the interventionists be part-time too, or would they be increased to full-time?
That's an important question, understanding that option. Title programs were run differently in the old Virginia district.
Excuse me, Noel, I would just like to ask if people in the audience can just be quiet because it's hard, it's a little hard to hear at the front here.
So the title programs were run differently in the old Virginia district and the old Evelyn Gilbert district. So we're still operating on the old contracts. They're still enforced, the teacher contracts. So with this option is we're talking about in the Evelyn Gilbert School District, that contract, which still is enforced because we don't have a new contract. They have a number of title teachers who work in title, but they're paid hourly. And so there's a number of those individuals. You need to understand this. So if your goal is to try to retain a couple teachers who normally would get laid off, this is an option for you to consider. What it would mean is we would need to let go the hourly Title I teachers, and they're in the old Evelyn Gilbert system. And then you can do that. They are not tenured teachers. The Evelyn Gilbert teaching contract specifically says they are not part of the Evelyn Gilbert teaching contract as per continuing ed rights. I checked with an attorney. Attorney verified that that is true. You can lay off those people anytime because they're not considered in the classical definition of teacher. So this one, if your goal is to save 2 of the teachers, this is a way to do this. And then if you said yes to this, we would let go those hourly Title I teachers. We would post internally for probably 2.8 teachers because as Spencer said, the money needs to break even. And then we would post it, see who applied. Any teacher who was laid off or about to be laid off, they could apply for it. We would interview for it, and then we take the best 2 from the interview team. So that's how that would work.
What about right of assignment? Could we just assign teachers that already work for us and then maybe add hours or Because you said 2.0 FTE and now you're talking about 2.8 teachers. Is that FTE, right?
To make the money work, it'd probably be closer to 2.8
Okay,
teachers. Yes, that's right.
Yep.
And you have to keep in mind that, I'm saying this is the superintendent of the entire district. You have other teachers who are also probably, depending what you decide to do, going to be laid off. So I feel the fair thing to do would be to, if you're going to look for 2.8 interventionists within the title program, would be to post it internally and let any teacher apply for that position. And it could be, you might have a teacher who is a current teacher in another position. They may want to take a shot at that position and move into it. But the way we're thinking to do it, the fairest way would be, if you take this option, would be to post and then interview for it.
So usually when you have a new position or a new class or a new whatever, you post and advertise. So are you considering this interventionist for math and reading a new position, therefore you're opening it for posting and advertising?
So that's one of the topics the school board personnel committee is scheduled to meet Wednesday. So that's one of the topics the personnel committee will talk about.
Okay.
Well, you had mentioned that there was a difference between how title is handled in the old Virginia district and Evelyn Gilbert. You kind of touched on Evelyn Gilbert's handling of Title I teachers. How are Title I teachers handled in the old Virginia district?
The title teachers they're making a shift to full-time teachers. And so in the old Virginia district and in the Virginia buildings, they are switching to full-time teachers. So the idea is that if we switch to full-time teachers, there'll be more consistency. We're looking for also for people who are on the reading end of it, who are specifically trained in phonics, because the research is very clear. Whole language is not as effective as phonics. So with kids who struggle in reading, we're specifically looking for teachers with phonics. And then to answer the question that Ms. Sorkin was raising about, could you post to the world? Yes, you could post to the world. You could open this up to everyone. However, and if you tell us to do that, we will. However, if your goal is to try to have two current teachers find a position for them, this is a way you could do it. However, you need to understand, in the same breath, we are not rehiring the hourly employees, teachers. They are teachers. A lot of them are retired teachers, to pay for this and make the money work.
Say that again, you're not rehiring the hourly ones to make this work.
Yes, there are 5 or 6. The title program in the Evelyn Gilbert buildings is mainly taught by teachers who come in for X number of hours a week, maybe 10, maybe 15, and we pay them an hourly basis. And so we would, in order for, if your goal is to try to hire the 2 full-time teachers at a 0.8 level, you would need to let those other employees go so we could shift the money over under this scenario.
I think we're, in this situation because of the extraordinary times that we're in, and because of the decrease more than anything in the number of students that we have because of COVID, the crazy year, exactly, that we had. And we are getting between the third and fourth or second, third or whatever rounds of COVID funding, $6.5 million. And to me, the best thing that we can do with that money is to spend it on the kids and not be cutting things. And kids are behind. And I think they're going to take extra work, and hopefully we'll get a lot of them back. So I hope that, the projections that we have will end up being low as far as the projected enrollments. I'd have a real hard time, cutting when we got this kind, and I know it's not, it can't be a long-term solution to spend more than you're taking in, but we aren't going to. We got $4.5 million we're expecting on top of the 2 million we got this year. That's my feeling, and I certainly voted for the third bus, but if someone would have said at the time, you can buy a bus and cut a teacher, I know I certainly would have looked at it differently.
And I don't think cutting title teachers is the answer either.
I agree.
Have you found any information from the state? The special session?
No, I haven't heard anything different. The last I heard was the 1% from MDE. I haven't heard anything coming out of the special session on if it's going to be 2% or anything additional. So right now, we're projecting a 1% funding increase.
How much flexibility do we have when title grants are written to change that plan and to change those?
I wouldn't have an answer for you on the Title I rules.
Noel? To do something like this, because they're pretty specific, aren't they, of what?
Very specific.
Yes.
And so that's why the terminology you would need to use if you chose this option are the teacher interventionist. So yes, title comes with very strict rules, and the money can only be spent in certain locations, in certain areas. And one thing, and I know Spencer's got another scenario or two to explain, but one thing that I feel I would be remiss if I did mention, and make sure the board is fully aware of this, is that we need to make sure the budget is on track long-term. Any SR2 or 3 are short-term money. That is not a continuous source of revenue. So we can cut these in the short term. However, if we're running the deficit multiple years and we're plugging with SR, when the SR funds run out, you just need to know this, you could have a very significant budget cut that you'll have to do in the millions of dollars range. And I'm not trying to be the prophet of doom, but I need you to know this, that if the enrollment goes up, we're good. But if the enrollment doesn't go up, if it stays where it is or even trickles south, then you will be cutting teachers. There's no way you will not be cutting teachers down the road, even if we plug them with ESSER funds right now. And eventually, buses get older. They do wear out. While we can hold back, and it makes sense not to buy a bus right now, and this makes sense, buses, the rest of our fleet is aging and it is getting worse. So we will have to catch up at some point. Where will that revenue come from? And yes, we can delay at textbook orders. And yes, but we'll have to catch up. Now, on the heels of that, we also have other areas. We have math, science, some other significant areas who also are going to be saying, hey, we're coming together. We need textbook materials. So the request for textbooks is not going to stop. It's going to continue. It will snowball on you, and the buses will snowball on you. So we just need to pay attention to that, so that we're thinking, and we're just thinking about those kind of things. We love keeping teachers. We want to keep as many teachers as we possibly can. We just also, from a budget point of view, we just want you to be aware of these things when you're making a decision. That's all I want to say on that one.
If there ever was a time for an exception for a one-year budget exception, it would be because the new boundaries were a year away from the new school opening. I mean, I think if you stick with it and put a Band-Aid on it for a year, you look at it again next year and see where your budget's at. And I think these teachers are going to be needed in the new elementary when the boundary lines are redrawn.
That school isn't full a year from September. We've made a mistake.
Agreed.
Now, the Title I teachers teach every subject area, right?
No.
When they help?
They primarily teach in math and reading. Those are the two subjects.
Oh.
Last rough draft we saw had a revenue for summer school. I don't see that on here. Is that
That's
think it's
still
some-
on there, but it's going to be paying for the summer school. so
Okay.
It's not.
Oh, all right. It was spelled out in the last one.
Revenue's still there for summer school, but it's going to be paying for that summer school, which is a good thing. So we don't have to use general fund dollars to pay for summer school.
I know this is a little bit out of order. Don't want to
We
say,
just want clarification because we've heard two 1.0s and 2.8s. What are we really talking about for the title, intervention?
Probably 2.8 positions.
Not the 1.0 that's in the packet.
No, 120,000 probably does not cover the full cost of two 1.0 teachers. It comes close.
That's what I said.
But our job on the budget thing is all, I'm hedging a little conservatively. If you say two 1.0s, that's what we do.
any other questions? Because we don't have to make a decision tonight, but are there any more questions for either Spencer or Noel as it relates to the budget?
About buses, I remember going to school board conventions and you don't always have to buy new buses either because there are buses that they get from other parts of the country and they refurbish and, there's no salt or anything. Have you ever visited any of those vendors about not brand new buses?
I have not. I have looked at some used buses before in Duluth, but they ran to get one that's nice. You're getting up into that new price, into that $80,000 range.
The refurbished ones that, there's a company that does this for a living, so I don't know if they could make a living if they didn't have a product. But it's just another thing to think of. Maybe you can get 3 for the price of 2, that if they're, like Washke says, we've gone through this in this car, we've, done all the repairs and everything. It's just like new, but it's not.
Big problem that we have right now is over on the Virginia side, we used to buy 2 one year, 1 the next, and we just kept doing 2, 1, 2, 1. And that's fine. And it keeps that fleet fairly fresh. There's 2 buses over on the Virginia side, which really need to be replaced. But on the Evelyn side, they deferred some of their purchases. So there are probably 5 buses over there that are in terrible condition. Do they run? Yes, they do. But will they pass a state inspection next time around? It was very iffy this time, and what I'm talking about is holes in the buses, that type of thing. You can only do so much to patch that. You just can't. The need is really in Evelyn more than it is in Virginia, to be real honest with you. But I don't want to have to come back here next year or the year after and ask you for 6 or 7 buses, which could very well happen.
I mean, Bob, when we buy these buses, right? I mean, are they undercoated or, are we just like run the crap out of them and the road salt and don't clean?
When I buy them, I do buy them with a foam spray underneath.
Do we maintain that undercoating to some degree?
Yeah.
Because some of these buses we're talking about had only 80,000 miles on them and they're falling apart.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind.
Well, the big problem there, Bill,
It's
is
a diesel truck that's
the
200.
big problem there is that we don't have the facilities in Evelyn to keep them clean like we do over in Virginia. We wash them every day over there and they can't do that here. It's very difficult. The garages are so small. Some of the garages don't even have water in them.
Do we have any buses in either former districts that are like reserve buses that don't really get used unless something happens and you need another bus? Are those the ones with the low mileage on them?
We have 2 in Evelyn that we use them when there's breakdowns or extracurricular activities. We have 3 in Virginia like that.
Okay, so what about introducing those into the fleet and then using the ones in the worst condition for the reserve?
Those ones are the ones that we've kind of retired.
Oh, the reserve ones are?
Yes.
Okay, they're not the low mileage ones that Bill's talking about.
Right. Those are just, those ones that he's talking about are just very old. We're talking 1999 buses.
With 40,000 miles on them?
I don't think there's any with 40,000.
Is that what you said?
90, isn't there one with 80 or 90,000 on it that we're getting rid of because it's in rough shape?
Yeah, because it's full of holes, yeah.
I don't get it.
That's like nothing on the drivetrain. I mean, for a diesel motor and transit, that's nothing. I mean,
Right, yeah, it's,
crying shame to see a bus with that low miles retired.
When you say holes on the bus, what do you mean?
I'm literally talking, you can push a pen through the side of it.
Rust.
And that's what the state inspector will do. She will walk around with a pen and she will push.
so there's no repair panels, rivets you can take out, like reskinning an airplane. I mean, if you do that, I mean, we got all the talent up here. I'm saying.
And it's costly.
That's costly to do bus.
In a couple of years.
My question would also be, how does that impact safety for the kids that are being transported on the buses?
Doesn't.
I mean, do these holes, I mean, is it the cab on the frame that's an issue, or is it just like the skin on the outside you can poke through? And I mean, the skin has, I get it, it has structural integrity for crashes, side impact and all that other stuff, but I mean, these buses are made of rivets and airplanes are made of rivets, and I mean, I understand this cost is very labor intensive to fix that stuff, but I just find it hard to believe that we can't repair a hole in some sheathing on a bus.
Oh, I mean, we do, they have an outlet, put some sheeting over the holes, and that's fine, but that only gets you so far.
What's proper procedure for repair? I mean, is there a operating procedure for skin repair of a bus?
You
Or
have to rip off all of the black stripes, which are all, and then panel by panel, you'd have to take it off. Have I ever done it? No, I haven't.
what do other districts do that? I mean, are like, is Hibbing, Chisholm, what's the county schools, what's Massaga East, what's everybody doing? I mean, I'm not picking on nobody or trying to be condescending by any means. What are other districts doing to keep their fleet safe for the kids? I mean, we're not trading in buses, they're not.
The buses are passing inspections, so the safety issue, it's not really a safety issue. But it will get to the point where if there's holes in the buses, they will not pass the inspection anymore. And there's about 3-4 buses over in Evlith that are on that cusp right now.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Could I ask one? So next week or in 2 weeks, should I bring back all options? Is there anything you want me to get rid of? I guess I'm looking for some direction on what I should present in 2 weeks.
Well, I would say all options, so we know the impact, both financially and student-wise.
Right, so bring back all 4 of these and then.
I would want that.
Do you have an interest, Spencer? You're making.
Thanks, Spencer.
6.3 is the sale of unusable and not needed materials, which is presenter Jeff Carey.
I just wanted to give the board an update of a topic that's come up at facility committee meetings. No, we're not asking for anything. I did put some pictures in front of you, just of the various areas that we're looking at. Just a reminder that in the next 12 months, we are moving 2 of our facilities. We'll be opening a new elementary. The Roosevelt will be closing. The Gilbert campus will be closing, and the Franklin will be repurposed. So anyway, we have been talking about what to do with the stuff that is going to be left behind or not needed anymore. And we're going to start with the stuff we're not using right now as it is this summer, to get that stuff out of the way. And I left you a few pictures of basement, the credit basement in all of our buildings. I got a few pictures, and yes, there is some good stuff. All the teachers back there, I'm not throwing away your good stuff, don't worry. I'll ask you with your name, but there's a lot of stuff down there that can go. It was suggested at the facilities committee meeting that we hold an auction first to see what we can get rid of, and anything that can't go, then we would do yard sale type thing, and then ultimately, if we can't get rid of it, that way we would start throwing. So the other one, is a little bit more popular, and that would be uniforms, and there will be some black and gold in these pictures at some point as well, too. This just happens to be on the other side of the wall right here, because Willie's been busy. We're emptying out the miners right now, so that's why that stuff is here. But in that form, we know that there'll be greater interest, so we are looking at an online auction for those items. And then also I've been working with the Virginia Historical Society on emptying out the Roosevelt and the high school of the art items that will not be repurposed, and we will also be doing online auctions for those as well. Any questions about that?
When these sales are done, where's the money going to go?
Wherever you want it to. I mean,
How about for lights?
I'll hand the check to Stacy, she'll hand it to Noel, and he'll probably hand it to Spencer, and you guys will decide where to put it.
I know that in talking with some of the coaches, say the baseball uniform, football uniform, or track uniforms, or whatever. Some of the coaches are wanting, would they be able to have that supplement their budget, some of it supplement their budgets? So.
I'm just selling the stuff, so it would.
And that is something we'll talk about later. Jeff's giving you a preview of what's coming. You will have to tell us if we do sell stuff, whatever we get from it, what do you want us to do with it? So Murray, you're right, it's coming. So at a future meeting, we'll have to talk about where do you want any revenues we receive to go.
That's fine. I mean, I was just, I'm just relaying what.
If you want it to go to my retirement fund, it can go there too.
Hey, Jeff, just for the people listening at home, I see you got some pictures here that got some desks, got lots of office chairs, cubicle partitions. Do we know what these things are gonna sell for?
We're gonna try the auction route to begin with, and
Even on yard sale or yard sale?
yeah, we'll start there, and then if we can't get rid of it that way, we'll do the yard sale thing, and it'll go in a dump.
Looking at some of these chairs here, maybe we should bring them over here for the board, because these look pretty bad.
Will do.
In the basement look a lot better.
Yeah.
We'll make it look prettier for the next meeting.
Jeff, is there anything left in the old junior high school in Evlith?
There's a couple desks over there sitting in a room, and there's a picture that will be part of this.
Part of that. And what about, are we selling any fixtures at the old junior high or the manual training building?
Fixtures as far as lights and things like that?
Lights, doors,
No,
shelving? No?
that was all as part of the demo package. The bidder won all of the demo, or all the salvage rights to the inside of the building.
Okay, so say if I wanted some lights, I couldn't make an offer and say I'd like to buy all the lights on the first floor, make an offer? Just because I knew about it, I walked through it, because I know it's in there.
Let me talk to Pat tomorrow, I'll get back to you on that. Because he's the one.
I mean, that was just
I know, I hear it.
Talk to Pat?
He's the one that is running the demo project right now.
I thought you were the one about the fixtures and equipment and stuff. That's why I asked you. Maybe we can talk later.
I will talk offline.
Okay.
All right, excellent.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up is Noel.
Thank you, Rockridge School Board. The purpose of what I'm about to say is just give you an update on where we are on contract negotiations. I'll start with AFSCME. We've been meeting with AFSCME for a long time. It's gone well on both sides. This is a process where we are merging, first time in 15 years in the state of Minnesota, two AFSCME contracts caused by consolidations together. There is a tentative agreement. Tentative means that both parties need to approve it, the AFSCME group and also you. I believe the AFSCME group is going to, I think the vote is next week sometime. If that group passes it, then we will bring the AFSCME contract to you for your approval or not at the last school board meeting in June. So I believe that one is coming your way. And I know people are going to ask, what was the total increase on that one? From where we currently are over a 2-year period of time, it's 4.81%. increase over 2 years. And then just to frame that in the context, in individual contracts, those are also coming in at an average of 4.81%. We have a number of people who are on individual 1 and 2 year contracts. They don't belong to a union. So that's what's happening with the AFSCME contract where we're at. With the teacher contract, we've met a number of times also. We haven't met as long as AFSCME, so we're earlier in the process of there. It's going well so far. Naturally, of course, this is the difficult merging two contracts together because even internally, there are always differences of opinions as far as what should be in the contract. So that one will not be coming to the board soon. I think that's going to take a little bit more time to flesh out, but eventually, hopefully it will be. My goal would be to try to bring something to you before school starts. However, sometimes things go on and on for all sorts of different reasons. So that's a quick update on where we are in the contracts. Any questions from the board?
Will the board be having a closed meeting to consider contract negotiations and strategies and proposals and offers?
For the negotiation of it, as of this minute, no. I've been not asked to do that.
Yeah, and that and or the AFSCME, a tentative agreement. I mean, shouldn't the board be having a closed session to talk about it as a full board? And or strategizing for the teachers and the individual negotiations?
That's what we have our negotiating committees for.
We did it differently in Evelyn Gilbert and the statute allows for the closed sessions for those types of things. And I just thought we should have them.
And I agree. I found those not having the time, frankly, to volunteer for the negotiations committee. I did find the closed sessions helpful.
I would imagine, being I'm on the negotiate, at some point in time, right now, we have just gone through the contract one time. And that's with all the sessions we have. Once we have something a little bit more concrete, I'm sure that we'll have a closed session and have a discussion about it, because that's what we used to do in Virginia also. Midpoint or somewhere, if there's a sticking point, or the whole board gets to weigh in on it.
Sure, but I mean, and to Paulie's point, I thought I heard we're going to be voting on the AFSCME contract at the next meeting.
That's what I did say.
Well, my thoughts on the AFSCME is if they both have come to an agreement on it and they're within the budgetary parameters that the school has come up with, we should applaud them. Putting two different contracts together from two different schools that have, apples and oranges I applaud them.
Oh, I'm not discounting the effort at all. I just think it's something that as a full board, we should be privy to weigh in on before we vote on it publicly with no discussion.
Yeah, we should be getting updates and having discussion about it as well. I mean, that's what we did do at Evelyn Gilbert. We did have closed sessions to just get updates on how it's going and what's been discussed. So I agree.
Well, actually, we always gave direction to the negotiating committee as a full board in closed session. As a full board, we decided, what we're willing to go up to and what basic, things we were interested in. So I think we're going backwards here myself, so.
And I think it's maybe just growing pains because we handled it differently in Virginia, and we found that was effective on our side of the aisle.
And it was effective on our side of the aisle too.
Well, and I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that we've found that AFSCME and contracts in general can be difficult, and you may sometimes get stuck if you don't really have the authority to move forward. That's why it's a tentative agreement with the board having final approval on that. And if committee members and if directors are saying that we'd like a closed session before we approve it, we can certainly do that. But there is a tentative agreement, it sounds like at this point.
Yes.
Polly, it took 8 hours to do the first reading of the teacher's contract. You have over 8 hours in that.
No, it's more than that.
More than that.
12 than that, but ask me, we put in three full days, 8 hours a day. One was a 9-hour day. And if we're gonna go through that, we better plan a few days or something.
No, I wasn't saying about going through that, but I think the full board, like we did, is to say, here's what we decided, we're gonna, total package, what percent
The easy
increase?
solution, Polly, is if we want to have it, we call a special board meeting and close it for negotiations, for us to read the ASME contract before we vote on it in 2 weeks.
You don't have to go through the whole contract. I think it's understood. The former Evelyn Gilbert board understands what I'm saying, and that's all. I'll just leave it at that. Full board decision going in and at the beginning and the end, and we haven't had any closed sessions at all on contracts.
Anything else, Noel?
No.
Thank you. Under agenda item 7, policies, the second reading, second of 3 readings for policy 206. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Reardon.
Support.
By Reardon, support by Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Oh,
Motion carries 8-1. Under agenda item 8, administration items 8.1 is consider approval of a recommendation to purchase 3 buses for the 2021-22 school year.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone that purchase
I'll support
of the school buses, so we explore a little further some of the ideas that were brought up by the teachers as solutions for budget cuts. And with the personnel committee meeting on Wednesday, I think that it would be wise to postpone that.
So there's a motion by
You've
Director,
already approved 2 though. Are we coming back for another approval?
So postponing the third one,
so your motion is to postpone the purchase of a 3rd bus.
correct?
And that is supported by Director Addy.
That is correct.
Any discussion? Is that something that impacts you, Mr. Voss? Or can we wait like till maybe July even?
The only thing that it impacts is time.
Okay.
They all have to be ordered. There's probably a 4-month waiting period right now. So if you were to order anything now, you probably wouldn't see them until December or so.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So,
All those, oh,
I'm sorry, so what our approval is that we're going to buy 2?
I think we'd already approved, yeah.
have they been ordered yet?
Voted on 3.
Okay, well, they haven't been ordered yet, so we could postpone all 3. And like reverse the other.
Postpone them.
So any other discussion?
What is the motion to,
Motion to postpone purchase of a 3rd bus.
is that what you want, Brandy, or all 3?
That's
Even,
what she said.
How much is each bus? What's the price of each bus again?
here.
They range 94.5 for a 77 passenger to 92.2.
But on the agenda, it says 8.1, to consider approval of recommendation to purchase 3 buses for
Right.
the school year. 3.
Right.
Noel, can you clarify, have we already approved purchase?
You have already approved 2 purchases. If you had, Bob, have we actually ordered those 2 buses
I
yet?
have not.
That don't.
So you could tell us to stop all bus purchases, or you could tell us you only want us to move forward with the 2 you've already offered, or you could say 3. We want you to buy 3 buses now.
So the motion on the table right now is to purchase an additional bus so that we would have 3 in total. There's support for that. Any other discussion on that?
Brandy said postpone.
I said postpone until I said I'd like to make a motion to postpone the purchase because I think that we need to discuss some of the things
Right.
that the teachers brought up today.
Yeah.
If we've approved 2 buses, we're in dire need of those 2 buses, then I'm fine with postponing the purchase of the 1 bus so that we can have further discussion about it. If it's not going to be a major issue and I don't know if the board can have discussion on it, but if it's not going to be a major issue to postpone, even if it were for, a meeting or 2 meetings, the purchase of all 3, then let's just hold off on making all 3 of those purchases.
I see it as,
Motion has to be one way or the other.
right, and so I think the way I see it right now is there's a motion to postpone purchase of the 3rd bus. So let's vote on that, and then if somebody wants to bring a motion to postpone the purchase of the other 2 buses, we can deal with it that way. I mean, we've already approved the purchase of those 2 buses.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to postpone the purchase of the 3rd school bus.
And that's what Director Addy supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So motion passes 8-1. Any other motions relating to the purchase of buses? All right, agenda item 8.2 is to consider approval of the renewal of the James Madison lease agreement between Rock Ridge Northland Learning Center, and that's Mr. Carey.
Hi, again. So you've heard us talk numerous times, we're in negotiations to try to sell that building to the NLC. They are not far enough down the road to make a commitment to purchase or not at this point. Then their lease is up on June 30th, I believe it is. So it is our recommendation at this time that we extend that another 2 years, the lease. The first year of the lease would be $253,000. The second would be $60,000. That is a 3% increase each year. Any questions on that or? Any more info?
There's are you making the motion, Director Tamero?
Making a motion.
Motion by Director Tamero, is there support?
Support.
Support by Director Anderson. Any other discussion?
Do the lease amounts equal or exceed our expenses for those buildings?
Kind of a loaded question because last year it was a great lease for us, but at any given moment, if things happen, we run that risk. We're on the hook for repairs. So.
Using,
Last year it was good.
yeah, okay, no, that's understandable. Are we using any of our long-term facility maintenance funds on that building?
That is part of the 10-year plan, yes.
Okay, and we're spending money on it? Pardon me?
When we have to, when things need to be repaired.
Yeah, okay, as needed.
I don't know that we're necessarily doing any preventative maintenance, if that's what you're asking. We're doing reactive maintenance.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Don't go too far, Jeff. We've got
Piece of paper.
consideration of approval of park paving proposal for the Parkview Elementary paving project.
So I put a picture in front of you of the playground. Playground was redone over at Parkview 3-4 years ago. And they left a stretch in between those 2 yellow gates as dirt. And they found out in the last few years that might not have been the greatest decision. And we're looking at paving that area. And I know Polly's first question is how many companies did you call? How many quotes did you get? It is very, very hard to find somebody that is available to do asphalt right now. So yes, I only got one. And it's actually a very good price considering. So I would recommend that we go ahead and do that this summer.
I make a motion.
Motion by Director Yuhan, support by Director Addy. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 8.4, consider approval of a work authorization form for the Virginia Elementary School existing gym deferred maintenance.
Okay, so as you may or may not be aware, we're building a school over on the Virginia campus in the coming years. And as part of that project, the existing gym is going to stay there. That gym was commissioned around 89, 90, somewhere in that area. And
It's the new gym.
the new gym. And that gym is, the original HVAC and roof is still on there. It was not a part of the original project to replace those things. So what you're looking at is a work authorization form for Cunningham to design and do some remodeling in that area as well, which would be additional to the bond project that were the new school that's being built there. And those funds would come out of deferred maintenance from the district. What we're asking you to approve is just so Cunningham can design those areas.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion by Director Tamero, support by Director Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No,
Motion carries 8-1. Agenda item 8.5, consider approval of the Mcneil Environmental, Occupational Health and Safety Management Program proposal beginning July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2026.
So this was brought before the Facilities Committee last week as well. The old districts of Evlith, Gilbert, and Virginia each had their own companies do these services. And we thought it would be prudent this year if we had one company do all of it. And so we did go up against it. We had two of the existing companies that both districts were using at the time. And Mcneil came under, so the Facilities Committee directed us to bring forth that one to you, Mcneil, for your consideration.
I'll make a motion to hire Mcneil Environmental.
Support.
Motion by Director Tamero, support by Director Yuhan. Discussion.
Jeff, you said McNeil was the lowest bidder? Lowest. What was the spread, the difference?
The other one
Is
was
it close or not close?
17,000.
17,000 difference?
17,000.
Difference or 17 total?
That's total on the other one.
Oh, and,
It was a difference of about 11,000.
okay. Year 1 through 5, okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 8.7 is to consider approval of professional services contract between Rock Ridge and Range Mental Health Center beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. And that information was in our board book. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there support? Support by Tamero. Any discussion?
Is this something that both districts had previously, or just ours or yours, or what? Service?
I think I can answer that question, members of the board. Yes, the answer is yes. There usually were two separate contracts. Range Mental Health has worked in both districts. This is a combined contract for one district. The principals did talk about this. We did talk about what do you think about this? Should we continue this? What's your recommendation? School board and the general consensus from the principals was to continue this because Range Mental Health serves kids all over the place in all of the buildings. It does cost us about $50,000 because they do some billing towards insurance companies, et cetera, and special ed services to get reimbursement back. After all of this, pay about $50,000 plus a year for the services, which wouldn't even cover the cost of a full-time counselor, and Range Mental Health covers it all over the place. We'd have to hire a counselor and send them to 6 different buildings, which is just kind of ludicrous. So that's why, so the recommendation for the principal group is to go forward and continue using that.
Do we ever get any kind of reports or anything from them about the services they provide and, has there been improvement? And, I think our district had gotten those in the past.
We do talk about that, and that is one thing that the larger principal group and the superintendent group, because Range Mental Health interacts with a number of school districts. And that's one thing all of the superintendents would like to get from mental health, a little bit better feedback on how their clients are doing and some type of progress as far as from here to there. That's actually been a multi-year question that's coming up with Range Mental Health.
So you're saying that with Exhibit A, well, and Exhibit B, it's, all of that will cost about 50,000?
It will cost you,
Yeah.
as a district, about 50,000 because what they do is there's ways that they can bill back insurance companies and they can bill back special ed depending upon who the student is and how things work. It's called third-party billing.
Right, yeah.
And so that's why you really aren't paying those rates.
Okay. All right, that makes sense because with those rates,
Oh, yeah.
1,000 is not going to cover it. All right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No,
Abstain.
Okay, so we have 7 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstention. Agenda item 8.8 is consider approval of a phone system, servers, and network switches and such, and
I have a little more information on that one.
I would appreciate that. I don't know what any of that stuff maybe is.
I'll do my best to explain, but first thing I just wanted to note on this is that all these purchases are funded by the bond, by the construction bond, so these wouldn't be coming out of the general fund. These would be coming out of the technology soft cost budget. And I guess to kind of take a step back, during the design process, there's hard cost money that's assigned to hard cost and money that's assigned to soft cost. Hard cost are like the bid packages to actually build the building with the plumbing, electrical walls, everything like that. And then soft cost is kind of, and there are also some tech items in the hard cost, like all of the wiring that we use, our security camera system, the AV systems, things like that. But then there's some items that were moved over to soft cost. And soft cost, what that is that's everything else in technology that isn't in hard cost, and also furnishings, and a few miscellaneous items, some HTE equipment, shop equipment, basically. So anyhow, all of these items are accounted for in the tech soft cost budget. And that budget's in good shape right now. All these items are under budget in there, so the servers are slightly above, but the other items are low enough below budget to where everything is still under budget on that. And then explanation as to what the devices are. This is basically a phone system that will be for all 3 of the new schools. And the servers are also for all 3 of the schools. And this actually saves us some money out of the general fund because both Evelyn, Gilbert, and Virginia had servers that are about 7 years old that were due to be replaced this year anyway. So this actually helps us out that we can get this out of the bond. And then the network switches are basically what connect all of the wires together and allow the 1s and 0s to flow. And they actually feed into the access points like these guys here. And then you need one of those in basically every room. Some of the larger rooms, you need multiples. And that provides Wi-Fi, which is incredibly important these days with our 1-to-1.
Great, can I get a motion to approve
Or
Anderson and Lotiger? Motion by Anderson, support by Lotiger. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Agenda item 8.9 is to consider the approval of the memorandum of agreement between Ed Minnesota Rock Ridge and the district. Motion by Addie and support by
support.
Lotiger. Any discussion?
I just want to say that I was in favor of this from the beginning and I was the only one in favor of it.
And to add to that, and Polly's right, distinctly remember it, we had a special meeting, we had a closed session, I thought we had a strategy, and I'm frankly surprised that this comes back to us, that there's basically been a settlement or an agreement in concept without having further discussion with the board, because this is not, I guess, what I expected to see without some additional discussion at the closed session level that we felt we should have prior.
And in addition to that, this board voted to not go into mediation with the district, and then all of a sudden, the district is going into mediation. So I don't know how some action overrides a formal school board decision. I'm glad it happened. I'm not crazy about how it happened in the procedure. So what good are board decisions and votes if something turns around and something else happens in the future?
I agree. I'm glad there's a resolution, but frankly, the process stinks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No,
Motion carries 8-1. Agenda item 8.0 is discussion with our attorney regarding pending litigation related to the demolition of the districts. And this may be closed to the public pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3 parens B.
What's this all about? It says all or portion may be closed. And what's the topic even?
So that the board can have an opportunity to discuss with counsel the pending litigation related to the demolition of the district building.
But what's the topic of pending litigation? I mean,
Well, that's for us to be able to discuss with our attorney in a closed session.
you have to disclose why you're going into closed session. You let the attorneys take over. You can't just go into closed session and say there's pending litigation. You have to identify.
Director Sorkin, let the attorneys speak.
Well,
I'm not going to
waiting.
have you criticize
I'm waiting.
by me.
Going into closed
I'm
session.
waiting.
Just a minute.
So the school board's going into closed session to discuss the pending writ of mandamus that was filed by Save Our Evelyn School Buildings LLC versus Independent School District number 2909.
That's all I asked. What was the topic?
So at this point, I believe we need a motion to go into closed session.
Make a motion that we support.
Motion by Director Reardon, support by Director Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. At this point, as people are doing, I will ask all those who are not board members to leave the room so we can enter into closed session. Thank you so much. Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
That's also going to need to apply to the people who are on Zoom.
So, yes, that's right. So I don't know.
I said, well,
We actually need to set
I
up.
understand the ugly look that
So that,
All right, well, I didn't get you there.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
there I am.
You feel
so
better?
we actually have to set up a separate Zoom meeting and we'll be sending you a link. Because this one right now is being live streamed on the website.
I think that would be a fair question.
I'll pause this one, send you a different meeting. So it'll just take a few minutes.
Thanks, Matt.
And this one should be unrecorded as well.
Yep, yeah, we won't be recording the other one. This one will still be recording, but.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask the public to leave so we can go enter into closed session.
Oh, we gotta leave.
Yeah.
We gonna leave? We gotta leave?
Yeah.
Have a closed session thing?
So we're working on setting up the other meeting right now. I'm going to leave this one and then we'll be sending you the links to the new one. So if you want to leave this meeting as well, and then join the new one when you get it. So.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm nice and cool, thanks to you, Bill.
you doing? Why are you out of your kennel? Hmm? Why do you gotta be a bad dog? I tell you to stay here, you need to stay here. The neighbors don't want you walking through their yard. I know you're getting restless, but sorry, we'll be moving soon. Yes, yes, yes.
Did you miss him?
No, but we don't have, no. So we are back in open meeting, and I would just let the record reflect that Director Sorkin has left prior to resuming the open meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to let Noel be the negotiator on the new amended agreement with the city of Evlith.
Support.
Whatever.
So there's a motion by Director Yuhan, support by Director Schoberg. And I would look for clarification then with Director Yuhan. Are you asking that Noel negotiate and sign, or just negotiate and then bring it back for board approval?
It doesn't matter.
I would say negotiate and sign.
Yeah, sign it away.
Okay,
Because it's going to go through our attorneys anyway. We don't have to bring it back for us to legalese it.
okay. so
I mean,
We all know what the.
but I mean, I think we should know what he, I mean,
He'll send it to us before.
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Who said that?
I did.
He didn't
Just
mean
be
it.
silly.
Motion
No
passes
time for jokes, though.
unanimously. Agenda item number 9 is meeting announcements. Or no, unfinished business, sorry. Number 10 is meeting announcements. The next regular meeting will be Monday, June 28th, here at the Spectrum Building. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I had an announcement
Yes.
that tomorrow there's a meeting at 6 o'clock at Gilbert Media Center in regards to the fate of what direction the city's going to take and the results of the survey that were sent out to the taxpaying citizens of the city of Gilbert proper. So.
I have two things. I would like to thank all of the great comments from all of you in regards to the girls winning the subsection for track.
Track. Yeah, that was awesome.
Liked it, and the coaches thought it was really nice. So there's only one board member that didn't respond. That's fine.
But they're not here.
Anywho.
And then in regards to the Blue Pride, I talked with, I got a message today. We were supposed to have a meeting this week. 2 people have quit the Blue Pride Fund committee, and thus we will not be able to have enough people for a quorum. So as of right now, that's kind of put on the back burner, number one. But number two, also in our discussion, again, it's only for Blue Devil athletics right now. And down the road, they're going to be merged or when all this happens. But the thing is, they want it to be known publicly that, say that, a basketball coach wants to buy a machine. Well, they're not going to okay that unless that coach has talked to the other coach in the district. So we don't duplicate and spend wasteful money.
Well, just a clarification on that for the board. If they don't have enough people to have a committee.
Right.
They can't spend the money and it reverts back to the Virginia Community Foundation. And the Virginia Community Foundation then will approve all expenditures from the Blue Pride Fund.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I got that notice saying that we didn't have enough, and all of a sudden, 3 people said, put their hat in the ring.
Oh, well, good.
So, I mean, well, I don't know when we'll be having our next meeting yet.
Thank you. Now, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So move, Ruben.
Support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
You missed your note.
That's
Oh, I got the announcement. So our meeting is adjourned.
8:40.
Can I speak?
Who's that? Someone wants to speak.
What's this Tim?
Who?
Tim Clello? I had the offer in on the schools.
We are not, I don't know if anyone else on the board wants to entertain this, but we've kind of discussed this already and it's not really related to anything that was on the board, so.
It is. It
not-
was related to the demolition of the schools.
And the demolition is moving forward. The board has not decided to change anything on that, so.
We didn't change anything on the demolition.
But that was my question. Well, it says construction, manual large building demolition and abatement procedures approval. So it's like number 42 or,
Yeah,
5, it says construction number 1 on the end of it. But I mean, it just seems to me like you guys are looking for money and I don't understand where the $50,000 for the purchase of the school would save you both of them schools.
and this is not an issue. I mean, the meeting of the board is over. We've already discussed this, and so there's no opportunity for input at this time.
I had asked for the chat to begin with and no one allowed it. So I mean,
But we do visitor input at the beginning of the meeting at 6.
Just drop it.
Yeah, but I wasn't asked for it.
Fill out the form.
The meeting, right? I can end the